Okay, we're continuing with this book, Holy Grail of Wisdom Quotes by me, Pete Rogers. We're doing the quotes today of William Faulkner, the writer, and we're also going to do historian Rufus Fears and Michael Faraday, the scientist. So we'll start with Michael Faraday. He did a lot of the pioneering work with electricity, English scientist, and he said, Rufus Fears quote about him, the history teacher, his discoveries electrified the world. He was a scientist of electricity. Faraday, the lecturer should give the audience full reason to believe that all his powers have been exerted for their pleasure and instruction. Yeah, and that's the other thing too. If you're going to be giving talks, try to make them good. I think it makes a big difference because a lot of people, they just give a talk and it's half-ass. Why not try to make it good? Okay, Michael Faraday. Water is to me, I confess, a phenomenon which continually awakens new feelings of wonder as often as I view it. Yeah, water is really important, but you almost never hear anybody talk about it. There's no lectures in med school or college about water. I don't remember a single lecture about it. And then later I studied it, and it's really important and useful to know about. And amazing. Okay, the book of nature that we read is written by the hand of God. That's another point, too. Lots and lots of the absolute best scientists who ever lived were very religious. Gregory Sloop, the great pioneer of atherosclerosis, I knew him. I was friends with him. He was super religious, okay? It's pretty common, all right? Because the more you study science and you learn sort of like how God did stuff, the more you believe in God. Because it's way more complicated than all these little lightweights who try to say you don't need God. That's because they don't know much. Okay, William Faulkner, the American writer from the South. He never finished high school. He said, when my horse is running good, I don't stop to give him sugar. Yeah, if you're on a roll when you're writing your rough draft or something, just keep going. Read everything, trash, classics, good and bad, and see how they do it, just like a carpenter who works as an apprentice and studies the master. I believe that man will not merely endure, but he will prevail. He is immortal, not because he is alone amongst the creatures, not because he alone amongst the creatures has an inexhaustible voice, but because he has a soul, a spirit capable of compassion and sacrifice and endurance. Okay. The poets, the writers' duty is to write about these things. It is the writer's privilege to help man endure by lifting his heart, by reminding him of the courage and honor and hope and pride and compassion and pity and sacrifice which have been the glory of the past. Yeah, I think you got to teach people about the past because lots of young people don't know almost anything about the past, and then you kind of live like a dumb animal, all right, or a child. Like Cicero had said, to not know what happened before you were born is to forever remain a child. Okay, Faulkner, the writer's only responsibility is to his art. He will be completely ruthless if he is a good one. He has no peace until then. Everything goes by the board. Honor, pride, decency, security, happiness, all to get the book written. If the story is in you, it has to come out. And I would say, yeah, in a sense that when you read and study a lot and you get a new idea, you sort of feel like, I have to put this into a book. And that's a normal way to feel if you're going to be a writer. Okay, next is Rufus Fears. He's the great professor, the greatest professor ever on the greatcourses.com of any subject. He lived from 1945 to 2012. When he was at the University of Indiana, they would say that there was no auditorium big enough to hold all the students that would want to take his classes. He did a whole bunch of courses with greatcourses.com. They're now also called Wondrium. Things like famous Romans, famous Greeks, greatest books ever written, what we can learn from the myths, what we can learn from history, the history of freedom and all this stuff. And he's very enthusiastic. He's a real smart guy. He's been I think he's a Harvard PhD guy, and then he went to Oklahoma and then Indiana or something like that. The chief quality of a great statesman is foresight, to recognize a problem and to solve it in a way that is good for both the short and the long term. Great men know that they have a destiny. Yeah, that's one of the key signs of somebody who is going to do something great is they feel that they have to. It's in their bones that they got to do it because you're going to get knocked down a little bit. You're going to run into a lot of opposition, and almost like in a lot of fields, the better you are, the more trouble you're going to run into. If you don't conform to the conventional way, you get a lot of backlash in academics. That's why I always laugh. People think academics is scientific or, doctors are scientific and all this other stuff. Yeah, right. It's about money, it's about power, it's about conformity, all those things. To do something original and good, you get a lot of backlash. Okay. Focus is the key to success. Yeah, that's another thing that's key to success is, like I remember Mark Schultz, world and Olympic champion wrestler, when he was, just out of college, wanting to win the Olympics, the next Olympic Games, he said, the only thing I own in the whole world is my motorcycle, and it doesn't really work so well. All he was focused on was wrestling, okay? And he became world champion and Olympic champion. In college, he was a 3-time NCAA champion. Okay, Rufus Fears continues. Plutarch is one of the best historians of all time. Yeah, Plutarch's Lives is great. There's a guy by the name of Alexander Petcast. He has a YouTube channel called The Cost of Glory, and he talks a lot about Plutarch. He says if you only read one thing about the Greeks and Romans, his favorite was Plutarch's Lives. Rufus Fears, biography is the soul of history. Yeah, it's so much better to learn history studying biography because it's interesting to learn about people. It's boring to learn about dates and battles and stuff. Who cares? But learning about great individuals that you can identify with, you say, am I like them? Am I not like them? Should I try to be like them? That's interesting. Rufus Fears. Julius Caesar was like Alexander the Great. Pompey and Crassus were examples of what not to do. That's all right around the time of Cicero. And I would say if you want to study Roman history, study Cicero. Because Cicero's right in the transition from the Republic to the Empire, and when all these big dogs were jostling for power. Julius Caesar always wanted to be like Alexander the Great. Pompey and Crassus. Pompey was pompous, okay? Crassus was a rich guy who should have minded his own business. He tried to be like Pompey and Julius Caesar, and he wasn't meant to be. Okay, and now he talks about Commodus, the later emperor after Marcus Aurelius. He said, Commodus was likely the result of infidelity between the wife of Marcus Aurelius and a gladiator. Commodus wanted to be a gladiator, like Nero wanted to be an artist. Commodus wanted a different concubine to have for each day of the year, and he had them. Okay, so that's what I mean by you learn from history. Nobody has a dog in the fight anymore about what happened in Rome, so you can study it openly and honestly, and that's how men behave when they have total power with no control, no checks and balances. Commodus, and he was in the movie Gladiator, if you remember the movie Gladiator, that Russell Crowe as a gladiator. It was a great movie. Anyways, he can insist on a different concubine in his bed every day. So that's why you don't want to give a ruler total power, because that's how they will behave. History has shown that. Marcus Aurelius wanted to conquer a country and then call it a new place, rename it Marcomania. Herodotus is the father of history, back with the ancient Greeks. The behavior of Clytemnestra is a foil for that of Penelope. So Clytemnestra was the wife of Agamemnon. And Agamemnon had been a jerk. He sacrificed Iphigenia. So she had a reason to be pissed off at him, but she was still pretty bad. Medea is another bad one. Penelope is the good one, the ideal wife. She was the wife of Odysseus. Okay, the other ideal wife in Greek history is like Alcestis, the one who gave her life for King Minos, and then Hercules conquered death, so to speak, to free her up. Okay, now some rules of history from Rufus Fears. He says, science and technology do not make us immune from the rules of history. A lot of Americans don't know that right now. They think, oh, we've got science and technology, everything is good. No, that's nonsense. The more science and technology we get, the worse America becomes. I grew up in the good old days, okay? I know what it was like. In the 1970s, all of my friends practically, their parents were married. They were so wealthy, their mothers didn't even work. And hardly anybody was divorced. And that's why I think, these modern women, they're getting such a bad deal. They don't even understand it. Lots of them, they're never going to have a husband. They'll never have a child. They'll have only one child if they have any. They don't understand how much worse off they are. All this nonsense about feminism, the life of a female that I've seen in this country has gotten so bad compared to what it was before, it's not even funny. Yeah, you get favored in divorce, but you're still divorced, and your family's, my mom was like the queen matriarch of a giant family. There'd be 100 people at our house for Mother's Day, and she was like this heroic figure. Whereas I see all these modern women, they're bickering, they're unhappy, they're working all day long, they come home, no one else cares about the house except for them. The husband thinks, it's her house anyways if there's a divorce, and men don't care too much about a clean house compared to women. So then they have to clean their house when they come home. They're exhausted, they're tired. I've seen it. All the young women that I've seen in the families that I know really well, they're kind of tired and kind of miserable. The young wives, now they're middle-aged. Compared to the old days, my mom was always happy and laughing, the life of the party. You don't know how good they had it, okay? It's a great deal. It's the best deal a woman could ever get, to be married to a nice guy who supports her. Then she's free. She doesn't have to do some job she doesn't want. A lot of women, they think jobs are cool. A job is cool when you're 25 and your friends all work. But you just wait till you start having some babies and you want to be home with your kid. You don't want to be at some stupid job where nobody cares about you. They'll fire you tomorrow and replace you in 5 seconds. Versus at your home, you're the most important person in the world. Anyways, that's the home front. Let's see, what else does he say? Power is a universal value. Freedom is not. That's another thing I notice amongst a lot of people that are not too smart or too educated. They sort of think the system cares about you. I can assure you, it doesn't care about you. I can assure you even more. Quite often, the system has contempt for you. It considers you a vermin, all right? That's important to know, because if you're going to some system and expecting it to help you and you don't realize that it doesn't care about you and it's not going to help you, you're going to waste a lot of time and often have a bad outcome. That's why to be aware of the objective truth of whether or not a system cares about you, whether or not a system is competent, like the medical system, is quite valuable to have a good outcome. So anyways, Rufus fears, he said, power is a universal value. The ruler always wants power, always. That goes without saying. However, freedom is not. Most rulers don't care if their people are free. It was a unique thing for America to care that the people are free. And we had unique great ones like G.W. and Thomas Jefferson back in the early days, and Ben Franklin, and a lot of other really good ones. Thomas Jefferson was a towering, heroic figure. If you really study him, read David Barton, you'll see he was much better than he historically gets credit for. Anyways, if you want to learn about history, Rufus Fears courses are great. There's a bunch of his videos available on YouTube. So hope you found that helpful.